Oh, we flew out so early. I think it was like we were getting up at 4 in the morning to leave the MTC to get on the plane to go to California. I don't remember most of that. It was just so confusing. We landed, and the 2 assistants were there with the mission president and his wife. President Cook was my mission president. I was just following the group. Didn't really know where we were going, what we were doing. We were just following the group. We ended up at the mission president's house, President Cook's house, and we had some kind of, I think it was breakfast. I think we got there early enough in the morning for it to be breakfast. I do remember that President Cook wanted to interview us all one by one, and that might be something a lot of mission presidents do. Maybe it was just something he does. But I remember going into the interview and in his office, and he just asked me, well, he says, "Tell me about yourself." And I did not know what to say to that question. Tell me about yourself, very open-ended question. So I just started rambling about like where I was from. I'm from Virginia. Both my parents are converts to the church. I grew up in the church. I just gave him a few different answers. And then he asked me if there was anything that I wanted him to know about myself. I said, well, I'm here to work. That was the only thing I could think of saying, and that was really the only reason I was in the mission. I wanted to work and do a good job. I didn't realize how life-changing that response was going to be, because I'm pretty sure, he hasn't told me this, but I'm pretty sure that sentence is what decided who my trainer was going to be. Something President Cook would always do is he didn't decide training assignments until after he had met the new missionaries. So as a result, I was assigned to be trained by probably the hardest working missionary that exists on the face of the planet. Definitely the hardest working missionary I ever met, Elder Justin Nelson. And to try to describe Justin Nelson to you, he's 6'6", so 6'6", really tall guy, really deep, booming voice, very intimidating character is Elder Justin Nelson. I remember being assigned to him. We had the big, transfer meeting where they walked all the new missionaries out, and we were all, and one by one they would announce who our trainer would be. We were assigned, and we actually whitewashed into my first area. It was the Marina Hills Ward in Laguna Niguel, and I didn't really realize what had just happened. I don't really know what I was expecting, but I didn't realize that the missionary I was with knew just as much about that area as I did, which was nothing. I didn't realize we were both kind of learning what we were supposed to be doing at the same time, and I started figuring that out as we went, but and I didn't know what to think of it. I didn't know if that was kind of a different thing or if that was just the normal thing. I really didn't have any bearing on the situation. We just showed up. We didn't know anybody in the area, and we found our apartment and met with the bishop. And this is actually, I think this was what you call a dead area that we started out in. Had maybe 2 baptisms over the course of the last several years when we got there. We didn't have one investigator coming into the area. But Elder Nelson was a hardworking missionary, so he just hit the road and started knocking doors. My entire mission, I did not knock as many doors as we did in my first couple of months with Elder Nelson. It's crazy, but how many doors we knocked. Had some crazy experiences. One of which was with the Vanderlyn family. Actually, we were just knocking doors, and I was just following him around. He was kind of the one knocking doors. I was just trying to keep up, and he was talking to people, and all of that was super uncomfortable for me, talking to a stranger on the street. There was this woman, probably in her, I want to say probably 30s, probably her mid to late 30s, I would guess, at the time. And she was out in front of her door grabbing a few things, and she saw us, and she turned around and was trying to make it for her door. Talking to her afterwards, she said, well, I wasn't really dressed to see people or talk to people, and she was familiar with missionaries and knew we would want to talk to her, and she didn't want to have a conversation because she was like cleaning the house, and she wasn't really dressed for that. So my companion, in his 6'6", booming, deep voice, says, "Excuse me." in this really loud voice, and she just turns around. It's like, "Hey, how's it going?" Very sheepishly, "Hey, how's it going?" And we ended up talking to her for probably 20 minutes while we were there, and helped her overcome a lot of misconceptions she had about what we believe or what we know to be true. And we set up an appointment to meet with her and her husband. I believe later that week, probably sometime. So we met with them, and that was probably one of the first miraculous experiences I had on the mission. Carrie was her name, and she was what you call a golden investigator. She received her answers from God very early on, in personal prayer, through dreams, through very powerful and unique spiritual experiences. Her husband Kurt, on the other hand, was a tougher nut to crack. He just had more concerns, whereas he felt he'd already been baptized in other faiths before, and he didn't see the need to be baptized again. And just different things were in his way. But they were coming to church, and it got to the point where both Carrie and the two kids, they had 3 kids, but 2 were old enough to be baptized at the time. Carrie and the 2 kids were ready to be baptized, and they were getting baptized this week, but Kurt had still not made the decision to be baptized with his family. They were getting baptized on Saturday, and we had dinner at their house on Friday night. We had brought an older couple from the ward that they had met, and were becoming friends with, the Nelsons. And the Nelsons are awesome. I could go off on their story for a long time, but we had brought an older couple from the ward that they had met, and were becoming friends with, the Nelsons. And the Nelsons are awesome. I could go off on their story for a long time, but the Nelsons were the last full family to be baptized in that ward, and that was a decade previous. Their story is just miraculous. The Nelsons, they have 12 kids. 3 are grown adults who are actually their biological children. The remainder were special needs children they adopted. So that just tells you, this is a miraculous family. And when they were baptized into the ward, it was the same type of situation where Sister Nelson was ready to be baptized. Bob, on the other hand, was not planning on it himself, and he made the decision the week of the scheduled baptism to be baptized with his family. So it was incredible story. But that was one of the stories they shared with the Vanderlins over dinner. They shared their own experience, which was incredibly powerful. It was a very powerful experience that they shared with the Vanderlins, which brought everybody at the table to tears, and Kurt included. And Kurt, by the way, is a big guy. He's a big football player build, tough guy, and is completely brought to tears, just like the rest of us. And almost under his breath, he whispered, "I'll do it." So the next day, he was baptized the next day, that afternoon, with the rest of his family. So that was the first baptism I experienced as a missionary, and probably one of the most powerful experiences that really changed my mission for the rest of the time I was in California. Because what I needed at that time as a missionary was I needed motivation to keep working so hard, to keep doing what I was doing. I found it there, because that was, up to that point, that was the happiest experience of my entire life, was that day, putting together that baptism, being there with the Vanderlins, and just seeing that entire miracle unfold. That was the pinnacle of joy I had experienced up to that point in my life. And that was motivation for me. It was basically, this is awesome. I want more of these. I want more baptisms, because it is such a great experience. So that really shaped my mission for the rest of it.